Conference finals time, Kurt. Pro Basketball Talk Extra. Let's jump right into the Western Conference Finals. Phoenix Suns versus Los Angeles Clippers. The Clippers are down 2-0 yet again. What happened thus far in that series?
What happened is the Suns are good. I mean, the Suns are a very good team. And I think that last play, the dunk from Ayton that sealed the Game 2 win sets up a lot of what they do right. Fantastic coaching. Monty Williams knew that rule existed. And I mean, I didn't know it until Jay Triano ran it like 5 years ago for the Suns. Like, I didn't know you could do that until a few years ago. He knew it and thought of it in the moment, set up the play. But then you've got Jay Crowder, like the steady veteran, making the perfect pass. You watch it after the play, Corey, he barely reacts. Like, he's like, yeah, I knew that was going in. Like, no big deal. Devin Booker laying his body out there with the Steve Nash bloody nose, going out there and probably broken nose, and lays his body on the line, holds up Zubac with that pick just enough to create the space. And then you've got Ayton, like this, the bouncy young player making the plays in the moment, coming up to the moment. It's everything that's gone right for the Suns all series, all playoffs long. And I'm less sold than you are. I think that they can come back in this because Chris Paul, man.
True. We don't know where Chris Paul stands as far as coming back on the protocol. Hasn't been cleared yet for Game 3. No one really knows. But if he does come back, that Suns team is dangerous. Like we've said before, you know how I always like to look at the other side of the picture. I'm looking at some of these score lines: 120-114 in Game 1, 104-103 in Game 2. The Clippers could have iced it if Paul George hit those free throws, right? So, but there are you never want to single one moment out because there are a lot of moments that build up to that conclusion. But that was a moment that stands out. In my mind, if you're a Clippers fan and you're thinking about this, like I said, 40-point triple-double by Devin Booker in Game 1, and you almost came back and won towards the end there. They extended out with some free throws to make it a 6-point game, but it was pretty close at the end there. It was a 2-point game going out to the stretch. And then this one, once again, it's a 1-point game. They have to do a perfectly executed inbound play. And Cameron Payne has to give you 29. So just to give them a chance to have that perfectly executed inbound play where everything goes right, including Gladiator Devin Booker setting that pick on Zubac, right? So and we know that the Clippers do an 0-2 start where it's always kind of slow and they come back and they're just robotic. They're automatic in the end there. So I don't know. I'd never like to count out the Clippers, but if Chris Paul comes back, I might have to count out the Clippers.
Yeah, I think that's the big turning point from the other series where they did this against Utah, where they did this against Dallas. Ty Lue's teams did this back in Cleveland even. Like, he's just, as a coach, he throws a lot of stuff against the wall. He tries different stuff when he settles on the matchups, when he settles on the plays and rotations that he wants. He sticks with them, and it's tough. Like, this is a really good team. It's just Chris Paul. He changes the dynamic. They're getting their best player back. The Clippers, I know they're playing it vague, but they are not going to get Kawhi Leonard back from an ACL. Even if it's just an ACL sprain, he's not back this series. And they miss him. They miss his ability to kind of drive in, touch the paint, and kick out, or just go up and get that mid-range. They don't have – Paul George did it. I think he did it down that fourth quarter. You say he hit shot after shot, got the layup, put them ahead, made play after play. And all that we're going to talk about is the free throws, which is a little unfortunate because he had a really nice fourth quarter before that.
Yeah.
And
both him and Devin Booker both had pretty lackluster first halves, 9 points each. And then the second half, they do what they do. But one thing to circle for the Clippers is the 3 of 11 shooting for Marcus Morris, Sr.
Yeah.
Because Morris, like, you see Beverly doing what Beverly does, giving them that huge burst, particularly in the fourth quarter, right? Marcus Morris, I mean, he's been kind of like a nice bit of offense for them all throughout the entire season. And then this playoff series, he's only 3 for 11 shooting from the floor, which is uncharacteristic for him. And they're still losing close games, Yeah. So for me, that, once again, if I have to bet, I'm not a betting man, but if I am thinking about this like on an odds basis, and I'm like, do I expect Marcus Morris to continue shooting 3-11 for the next at least 2 games? Or Cameron Payne to give me 29 points, or Devin Booker to give me a 40-point triple-double. In my mind, I'm betting that Marcus Morris will play like Marcus Morris, So
he's had a banged-up knee. I think that's been part of it. I remember he sat out part of Game 1 and they had to go. I mean, they went to the DeMarcus Cousins minutes and stuff just because he wasn't out there. I think that seems to be affecting him a little bit.
True. Very true. Let's go to another preview here on the Eastern Conference side. Now we squared away the Western Conference. We know what's going to happen there. On the Eastern Conference side, Milwaukee Bucks versus Atlanta Hawks. So what do you think about the Hawks' chance to win this series?
I love the Hawks story. I think they go into this kind of free and loose, right? They're playing with house money. They're not supposed to be here. They're way ahead of schedule. They're all good. And I think the Bucks are more talented. I like the matchups for them in this. Drew Holiday can do, frankly, maybe even a slightly better job because he's kind of physical and more the size than Ben Simmons did on Trae Young, but they can at least make Trae Young's life difficult. And this is a better defensive team behind them right now. They're connected on a string. They play really good defense. They've got a couple rim protectors with Brook Lopez and Giannis Antetokounmpo. I just like the matchups much, especially on the wing. I just like the matchups so much better right now for the Bucks. But the question is, can they handle the pressure, Corey? I mean, this is it. Yeah. This is what has held them back. It feels like in past years is that when the road is opened up for them, but are they going to take advantage of it?
I think the answer is yes this time. And with the Hawks, though, we've known that they will never give up. So from my perspective, the goal for the Bucks, the key to victory is maximize good possessions because first of all, good possessions. And then secondly, shut the door. You got to close the series out. If you get 15, 20 points up like we've seen them do in the past against really good teams, particularly in this playoff series, you cannot let them come back because the Hawks have shown you time and time again, it doesn't matter if they're down 20-something, they will come back and beat you. So Trae Young, you can never count out in the fourth quarter. So from my perspective, your defense is going to limit their opportunities. I think the Hawks sometimes can be a little wild with their possessions. And if Trae Young is doing what he's doing, which is, facilitating the ball like a mad genius out there, if his shooters aren't hitting open shots, then that offense kind of like stalls out. It's a very interesting offense. It's a very interesting offense. But then I think that the Bucks, if they can just take care of business on the other end and not go into the muscle memory that we talked about before in past episodes of isolation basketball where Chris you go, Drew you go, Giannis you go, if they can just play their game for 4 quarters, I don't see the Hawks having much of a chance here. But like we said, we never want to count out the Hawks because they've shown 20 points doesn't mean anything.
I will say this, you're right about the Hawks having those kind of wild, either they turn the ball over, they just miss a bunch of shots, they go into these points where they get stalled out. If you do that against the Bucks, they will run. And they get Giannis playing downhill, and he's been better about kicking the ball out to shooters. If the Bucks are winning the transition and the fast break points by a lot, that's rough. They are so good in transition. The Hawks, they just can't allow them to run. They need this to be kind of an ugly, grinding series because if it's up and down and about your athletes, you're in a lot of trouble, man.
Yes, but I will say I've been very impressed with the Hawks big men. Obviously, we've seen those lob highlights all over social media.
They're going to be available in the series, yeah.
Yes. So but I think with that's going to be a big kind of point of emphasis, particularly Clint Capella in the back by the baseline getting lost. I think he's going to get lost a lot, and there's going to be that easy dump where he just takes one step up and finishes around the rim. And I mean, they did that against the 76ers a ton too, which I was like, how is everyone losing Capella? But then I started thinking about it, and I was like, well, actually, Trae Young brings 3 or 4 people every time he drives. Every time he puts one foot in the paint, there's 4 people around him, right? So it's kind of like pick of the litter. Do you want to knock it out to Bogdanovic for a 3, or do you want to drop it down to Capella for a dunk? It's amazing.
Yeah, they're fun to watch, and I think that it's going to be fun to watch them on this stage. It's just this might be as far as the road goes for them.
We will see. We might be talking about this next week in a completely different tone. One thing that has come up time and time again is the officiating during this playoff series. How have you thought? What has been your take on the officiating thus far?
In the grand scheme, and people are not going to love this take. In the grand scheme, it's kind of what I expect from playoff officiating. It's, is it consistent night to night or even within the game? Kind of not always. I think a lot of casual fans who don't watch a lot of basketball during the year are now like, hey, wait, how's that non-basketball move getting a foul right now? I'm like, dude, it's been a foul all season. They're talking about addressing it next year with new points of emphasis and having the refs call that. But the the most common one we talk about is Trae Young stopping up, but there's guys jumping sideways into guys. That's been a foul all year. That's not going to change in the playoffs. I think that it gets frustrating for some too, because what's a foul on Trae Young isn't a foul on Joel Embiid, right? To use that series, right? Trae Young's a little more frail, sells his calls, let's be honest. But little guys have always gotten those calls. They kind of go flying around, and big guys, if you're not even necessarily big guys, strong players, it's power through these kind of things and don't get calls. It's not consistent, but I think that's just playoff basketball. It's just kind of how it tends to be year after year. And guys kind of going back to Shaq, or frankly, probably going back to George Mike, and guys just have to adapt. I
want to know, Kurt, if there's been like if there's a direct correlation between FIFA and all of these calls, because I remember back in college when I was playing football, we were all hooked on FIFA. Everyone plays like 1 or 2 games, within all the sports circles. And FIFA was one of those games that a lot of the basketball guys and the football guys really loved. And I remember being so frustrated. I was like, that is not a penalty. This guy is selling this call. And then I learned how to do some of that on the field as far as receiving with some, pass interference. You kind of learn the savviness that the soccer players just have instinctually. And a lot of these young guys, especially with the influence of the European guys, I would be curious to know if there's a direct correlation between soccer savviness and basketball. But yeah, I think when we look at this playoff series, you're not going to get all those calls that you had in the regular season. It's going to be more tough, like that last sequence we talked about with the Phoenix Suns. I'm sure there was even a moment where Devin Booker smiled right after the post-game conference. It's like, I didn't know if it was going to be clean or not, so that's kind of one of those, and I'm paraphrasing there, but it's one of those things where you don't really know. You have to let the guys play, and you're not going to get every call down in a critical game deciding moment like that with 10 seconds left or 0.9 seconds left or a minute left in a playoff game. Players got to play. Yeah.
By the way, I think that's taught in soccer. Just as a guy with 2 daughters who plays club soccer, one playing high school ball, and I travel all over watching young women's soccer. There's teams and there's people who teach that at a young age in soccer, the way it's just, I don't think, taught in other sports. But I think other players, if you're Chris Paul, man, you think Chris Paul's not taking every competitive advantage he can get, and if he can sell a call a little bit, he's going to sell it, or he's going to go to the ref and say, man, you got to watch this. He's catching my arm. He's hooking me. They're always talking. They're always looking for an edge. That's part of it. I think the officials honestly do about as good a job as they could do. It's rough. It's a rough sport to officiate. And, man, if you called every foul that Trae Young gets on Joel, for Joel Embiid, how many free throws do you want to watch on? This is an entertainment project. I don't want to watch a parade to the free throw line. It's, I think, what bugged people about James Harden for years.
Oh, that's just not good television for you, Kurt?
Not good television.
Yeah, like you said, competitive advantage and being able to be savvy. I think with any great offensive player, they understand the rules and then how to work the rules to their advantage. And if you can get 9 uncontested shots, a game, that's just easy money. It's easy money. But yeah, we'll see how the Eastern Conference playoffs and then the finals are called. But thanks for the take, Kurt. I appreciate it. I learned a lot. The NBA draft lottery was last night. Big winners, big losers. Who comes to your mind? Detroit got the number 1 pick overall. But what's your take on what happened?
Yeah, Detroit's obviously a winner. You're always a winner when you get the number 1 pick, right? What's interesting is, I'll just say the buzz this morning, because if you look at the mocks around the nation, even before this, every analyst seems to have Cade Cunningham as a clear number 1. I'll just say the buzz coming out of Detroit is probably going to be Cade Cunningham, but they are far more open to Jalen Green. They always say they're going to trade it. Nobody's going to put together a package. I don't think that that's going to what it would take to get that. I just don't see happening. But I think they're way more open than expected. I think some people really see the top 3 or 4 people in this draft really tightly bunched, and I think they're going to take a look at the Jalen Greens. I think the other big winner that jumped up, Toronto, is a team kind of just starting their rebuild. They jump up to 2. Houston jumps up to 3. Houston keeps their pick at number 2. So I think Like all those teams, Houston could have lost their pick. OKC could have gotten it if it were outside the top 3. Houston keeps it. They get a good piece for what's going to be a rebuild there, too.
Yeah, you have Detroit 1, Houston 2, Cleveland 3, and Raptors 4. Raptors building around Pascal Siakam and OG Anunoby, and of course Fred VanVleet, who had a remarkable edge of the season. There's some of those performances were incredible. I think, you know what I say, Kurt? I think Golden State is like the past 2 draft cycles for me. I'm just thinking how, like especially after watching Steph Curry play the way he did last year, where it was just, I think, some of the best basketball I've ever seen come from him, and he's a generational talent, right? I mean, so to think how much, I mean, I've seen a lot of great basketball from him. And last year I was like, whoa, this is a different Steph Curry. So you add that piece, Clay coming back. You have James Wiseman, who, you know, I know he got injured, but man, that guy is talented. I think he's one of the most talented rookies, you know, I've seen in a while as far as just a skill standpoint. So I can't wait to see him mature. So you have that as a long-term vision, and then you have the 7th pick and the 14th pick in this draft, which, you know, some analysts think is a lot deeper than last year's draft. Hey, I love what they're doing over there, and you know that organizationally they're going to spend. They're going to make sure that they put their players in the best position to be successful. So everything's aligned. You have front office, GM, you know, head coach, consistent veteran leadership of guys who are playing at MVP levels. It's just everything's going right in Golden State. And then now you have those young core pieces that they've been trying to trade for. Now they're just drafting them. Oh man, this is textbook, man. This is unbelievable.
They might draft them. I will just say there's a lot of buzz about Bob Myers, the GM there, considering packaging 7-14, and for the right player, your man James Wiseman, to bring in a veteran. If they can get the look, Curry's 31. Klay Thompson's 29 or 30. Draymond Green is getting up there. These are guys on the back end of their prime.
Well,
maybe
Chris
the
Paul,
starting downhill.
he's 36 after playing the best basketball I've seen.
I get it. I get what you're saying, but they're looking for players who can help this next season. And if they can get a guy like that and trade the picks, you know, it depends on who it is. I don't think they're throwing in Wiseman for anything less than I hate to use his name, but if Bradley Beal came available, like, then yeah, you make the call and you throw something. Like, it's going to take that level of star. They're not throwing it in for just another James Wiseman in for just another starter, but they're going to shop. They're going to shop hard and see if they're not in the development game at this point. They're in the win now with Curry phase.
Yeah. Once again, I think about their offseason move, and once again, we have to understand the circumstances around last season for sure. Yeah, I want to make sure that's very clear. Klay Thompson getting injured, you're kind of scrambling. What do we do, right? You get Kelly Oubre in this kind of what we're talking about, this shopping, trying to make sure that you give yourself a chance to win now. I think with the Golden State Warriors, kind of their pedigree, I think the way that they do business, I think the development route is just as, if not more compelling to me personally, when you have Steph, Klay, and Draymond. You know, when you're looking at the other end of the spectrum, which let's just say like a team like Detroit or something, right? Where you have a lot of young guys. One of my favorite young guys from last year, you know, Sadiq Bey, very, very impressed with his game. But they don't have the veteran leadership that the Golden State Warriors have. So for me, I'm like, that makes sense. You might want to package some people, get somebody in, like a Steph. But if you already have Steph, I think the development route is a far better way to go. But that's just my opinion.
We'll see where they go. I think it's going to take a special offer. Look, they shopped that number 2 pick last year and ended up taking Wiseman. That very well may be the direction they go.
Kurt, Tokyo Olympics coming up. The women's team going for their 7th straight consecutive gold, which is just mind-blowing. You think about dominance. That's the definition of dominance. Headlined by Sue Bird and Diana Taurasi, absolute legends in the sport. And I got to give a shout out to my Notre Dame grads on that list, Skylar Diggins-Smith and Jewel Lloyd. So shout out to them, go Irish. And the men's team, headlined by the best player in the world right now, Kevin Durant, as argued by a lot of people. And not to mention, James Harden's on that list, Damian Lillard's on that list, Jason Tatum's on that list, Bam Adebayo, absolutely stacked. What are your thoughts going into Tokyo?
Yeah, exactly that. We are just stacked on both of those teams. With the women, I feel bad for whoever's got to pick that team because we are so loaded. Everybody wants to go. You end up snubbing people, and it's unfair. And we could argue on the margins, but we send an absolutely stacked team every time. And with the men, unlike a couple of years ago, remember, I mean, we sent the B team to China for the World Cup in 2019. We finished 7th. We qualified for the Olympics, but we can't do that anymore on the men's side. The basketball in the rest of the world is too good with the, Jokic's and Doncic's and all these guys out there, and let alone just good players around the world. We've got to send our best if we're going to win gold, and they've lined up to do it this time. We are stacked on both sides. And by the way, how about the coaching? Greg Popovich and Don Staley. Does it get any better than that?
No, it doesn't. And like you mentioned with the world's best, I mean, in the NBA, who have been the MVPs the past few years. Yeah. All European players. So that's just an interesting kind of shift as far as how the game is growing globally, which is great for the game of basketball and the health of the game, compared to even the Dream Team, 1992, where Team USA was clearly the best team in the world. And now it's like, Jokic, Doncic, Giannis, Embiid. There are a lot of great international players who are coming in and changing our game for the good. So I cannot wait to see it. I'm telling you, it's going to be absolute fireworks. I just want to see Kevin Durant get into a zone. That's why could you imagine? It's like if he was doing that towards the end of the playoff run. Yeah. Oh man, the world's on notice right now.
Yeah, you're spot on. He's been the best player in the world, I think, through these playoffs when he's been on, and now he's going to have guys around him. He doesn't have to score 49 to get them to the next round, because when you start to when some team tries to send a double to him, I'm like, I'm going to find Bradley Beal. I'm going to find Damian Lillard 38 feet from the hoop, and he's going to hit it anyway. It's not going to be fair. We send such a fantastically deep we just have such an athleticism and depth of athleticism advantage. Other teams are a little more. Think back to the Spanish team that gave us trouble in 2008, and the Gasols and everything. They've played together for so long as a unit. They were really tough to beat because they were a real team that had been together longer. But we roll out so much talent for the Olympics, and we did again. The guys are showing up for this one.
Greg, I got to ask you a question, though. You think about some of those names, Devin Booker, Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, they might go all the way.
Yeah.
So you think about those quick turnarounds. Do you think we're going to see any late dropouts, or how's that going to affect their play out here in Tokyo?
I wouldn't be surprised if we did. I don't, those guys want to be there, but the finals, honestly, the NBA schedule is already out for the finals. The finals will go as late as July 22nd if there's a 7th game, and it's like July 20th or 21st for Game 6. The Olympics start July 23rd in Tokyo. Are you going to play and jump on? If you're going to play 6 deep in that, are you going to jump on a plane and play 72 hours later or get it? I don't know. I think guys really want to do it. I have no doubt Devin Booker wants to be there and Chris Middleton wants to be there. Whether they're really going to do it after the finals, we'll see.
You just bring an ice pack on that 12-hour flight?
Yeah. Exactly.
Just bring an ice pack.
The gold medals, man. You can't they don't give those out other places.
Absolutely not. Can't wait to see it. So we'll see what happens in Tokyo coming up soon.